Jack Gibson, rolling towards that big game in September, wants decisive wins in every match. St George have reshuffled their team, and it's a do-or-die effort required from here on in. The front line of any team must be the forwards. Tonight, the Dragons have chosen terrier forwards instead of the big men. The work rate from these fellas will need to be first-rate to make up for the loss in weight. Steve Morris returns to half-back, and his attacking flair will need to be working overtime. The Dragon back line will need to see a lot of the ball to bring off a victory. Johnson and Gearan are amongst their key point-scoring prospects. Well, if ever true grit was required by any team, it's needed by St George tonight. To knock off Parramatta might just give them the much-needed confidence they need to win their remaining 7 matches and scrape into the 5. The man to tell them when they're right and when they're wrong, Graham West. The men to tell us when he's right or wrong, Ian Maurice, Darryl Eastlake and Arthur Summons.
The Parramatta side come out let out by their skipper Stephen Edge. Only one change to this side, and what a side it is too. They're Power Plus, the Sydney Premiers, and they want to go on with it today. Stephen Edge playing against his old club, and out they come. Ian Maurice.
St George Dragons let out by Graham Quinn, one of 6 new faces from last week, and it was a disappointing performance last week. A new look side. Let's see if they can restore some of the pride to this great club.
Parramatta will be kicking the ball off, and St George running with a wind behind them. What little wind there is here, it's a perfect afternoon for rugby league in Sydney. The wind behind St George. And that's the fullback Glenn Burgess bringing it up for St George, and still inside the 22. This is Jarvis, player that played representative football in the Sydney side. Was selected in the State of Origin side, but withdrew through injury. Parramatta with their first touch. And that's Stephen Ella. Ray Price. St George pretty quickly up to hit him, and Graham Walsh pretty vigorous in that tackle. Walsh with the headband on. Penalty has gone to Parramatta. Steve Ella finding touch, and that'll take play midway between the half and quarter, probably a little closer to the quarter. Stephen Edge takes the tap straight out to Taylor. Taylor comes back inside, but too much defence. It's Jarvis. Ray Price from dummy half. This is Stan Jerd, state player for New South Wales, playing in the second row today. Played just outside the 22. Taylor. Parramatta looking a little disorganised then. The ball floating around through pairs of hands, but St George have come up with it. And Parramatta just not into gear just yet. This penalty goes to St George.
A little bit disrupted, of course, Para at the moment. They're trying things a bit early in the game. They normally settle their game before they try things, but the set move was put on earlier, and again they went to a standard sort of halfback, straight to the halfback, but nothing eventuated. But they'll try things all day, Parramatta.
Interesting to note that the other games have gone to St George rather convincingly. In the third grade, they won that 20-10. Reserve grade 18-6 St George, Arthur.
Yes, it'll be behoves whether the first grade can make it 3 in a row, and of course they've come out full of vigour at the moment.
Well, St George now have worked play 10 metres short of the 22. Parramatta into the ground and starting to throw it around. They're nice and deep. This is Johnston. Here's the Winfield Cup standings in the competition. Parramatta in 2nd place, St George in 7th place. The ball has gone into touch. Kenny chasing it. That'll force the scrum right on the halfway mark.
Morris to FAIRHALL. Quinn quickly up on him. Burgess dummy half. Trudgett, getting it back to O'Grady. With the tries that both sides have scored, Parramatta 85 tries, have conceded only 34. That's a marvellous record. St George 65 tries, they've conceded 47. Now 45 metres out from the St George line, Pat Jarvis losing the ball. Sharp able to pick it up and allowed to play on. No, the referee said, I called you to play it, but he obviously didn't hear him.
I thought he actually gave the signal for him to play on, but he must have meant play on was to, in fact, play the ball.
I think you're quite right, Arthur. He did have both arms out to his side saying play on. So a little hard to understand that ruling from referee West. So St George now with the free kick, 32 metres out from the Parramatta line. Here's Walsh running very vigorously into the Parramatta forwards. Morris and FAIRHALL working that run around. FAIRHALL with that kick, chasing it through too, but it's a little bit deep. Ooh, only just deep as Michael Beattie made a great effort to get there. Here's the run around, and this kick from FAIRHALL I thought was going to be way too deep, but it stood up, and Beattie, who was following the kick through, very nearly got there. That's how close he was. Tackled by Price. No score here at Belmore. The settling period. Both sides testing each other. Here's FAIRHALL again, showing a distinct willingness to kick today. It's not a bad little chip kick, nicely picked up by David Lydiard for Parramatta. Now down the blind side is Stan Jerd. Taylor. On to Lydiard. The St George defence in stark contrast to their performance last week. They're tackling very well. Now here's Ella. Again, his legs taken from under him. Jerd. Last tackle coming up for Parramatta. Taylor. Straight down for Burgess. One bounce and he's got it. That's his quarter line. Beautiful tackle. Magnificent tackle from Ray Price. Now Steve Gearin tackled, and the referee saw something in that tackle that he didn't fancy. And Paul Mears is the player being called out. Here it is. Gearin with the ball, caught by Edge, and then Mears coming in over the top. Now the free kick to be taken by John Dowling, 10 metres short of the halfway mark. Jarvis head down straight into the Parramatta pack. Morris, now FAIRHALL, stepping straight into the defence coming across. Bugden was the tackler. Now here's Walsh, caught by Sharp, just on the halfway mark. It's back with FAIRHALL again. Charged down by Quinn, and the referee didn't see it as a charge down. He saw it as a deliberate attempt to play it, and he's given St George 6 more tackles. Now here's Walsh. Again, the Parramatta defence there to pull him down. Morris, change of direction for Jarvis, cleverly got it away to Trudgett. Quinn shaped to kick, but his legs taken from under him beautifully by Mears. Now it's O'Grady. Now he'll kick. Waiting for it, perfectly positioned was David Lydiard. Read that play very well. Can he get away from O'Grady? Yes, he can. But John Dowling is there to make sure that he stays down. Now here's Ray Price for Parramatta, just short of his own quarter line. No score from the Belmore Sports Ground. 19 minutes of play gone. Paul Mears bumps off one. Finally caught. Still just short of his own quarter line. Stan Jerd. Penalty to St George, and it's against the player Jerd, not being back 5 metres, although his side was on attack. Well, referee West has shown his hand here, Arthur. He's obviously going to penalise either side. Steve Gearin, 15 metres in from touch, and on the quarter line. That's a perfect angle that you see there. Looks pretty good. straight through the post, and St George draw first blood at Belmore. St George 2, lead Parramatta 0.
Stephen Ella ready to kick off for Parramatta, and St George drawing first blood, and I think we've got a ball game on our hands today, because St George certainly breathing fire. The Dragons of yesterday back on Belmore today. Dowling. This is Jarvis.
One of the noticeable things about St George is the defence is low. Their first tackle has been low, and we've been commenting about this in previous games. Great kick.
Beautiful line kick from St George, and that's the sort of play that they've put on. They've varied their play today. The defence has been first pass, and they're hitting the line hard. They're a big chance today.
Stephen Ed's going down in the scrum, possibly with a loose arm, and referee's very severe on these sort of penalties. And
this is Michael Beattie. Make sure he finds the line, still giving the side enough room to move, although he's probably gone a little deeper than he would have liked then. This is Dennis Kinsella. But Dowling takes the tap. He goes to the line, gets it back quickly to Kinsella. See how close he is. You can see it for yourself, and they go again from dummy half. That's Quinn. And again, Dowling goes from there. Well, they've had 3 goes at it. This Parramatta defence will wake up to that, and Parramatta come up with the ball. Well, not good play from St George then. But Parramatta have got a penalty out of it.
Very poor play, and then give a penalty straight away. It's probably better that they do that. They can at least they're going to get relief, but well inside the 5 yards, of course, to incur that penalty.
They were kicking Parramatta out of trouble, and they've been in a bit of trouble this match too. You often find out that when you get a side with a lot of young new replacements, especially after they've been going so bad, St George, they're playing well above themselves today.
Well, that's typical. They've got certain points to prove, and they've come on to have their big go, of course.
It's a set move now from Parramatta. To graphic shot of it there too, as you saw players going through from one direction to the other, but it's Growth that comes up with the ball. But St George read that one pretty well. This is Ella.
Full marks to Gibson, who trials them and trains them on these sort of set moves all the time. It does keep the opposition guessing, and if they stand back and watch, they'll carve them up.
Sharp to play it to Jerd. Jerd going from dummy half and absolutely belts one of St George players out of the way. It was Dowling. Pushed him straight out of the way. It's Kenny. Oh, nice big pass back inside to Ella. They turn the line good on the Kenny. Kenny's looking for support. He's got it too. They turn it back inside to Ray Price. And Ray Price is over for Parramatta. And that's the Eels at their best. They just kept it alive. And Ray Price over for a great try.
What a great prospect this young Quinn is. Look how he takes this ball, steadies himself, a beautifully executed reverse pass, flick pass. Then he backs up young Brett Kenny. Magnificent take here. Steadies himself again, draws the defence, and just unloads with all the time in the world. A mark of a champion, this kid.
Ella having a lot of time about this kick. It's a pretty important one. And the angle looks good. That'll be just wide, waved away. So score remains Parramatta 4 leading St George 2.
Here's young Quinn. Beautiful flick pass for Ella, as Arthur Summons pointed out. Full marks to the youngster. Kenny away, and Quinn there to back up and take this pass. He was in the clear, defence converged, then a very clever pass for Price, who juggled it out of the tackle and over for an excellent Parramatta try. Well, it was St George who were doing most of the attacking, but now it's the Parramatta side that scored the first try. In fact, the first scorers for today for St George, number 2, Steve Gearin, and for Parramatta, number 8, Ray Price. If you're playing the Sol Pattinson's Lucky League, 2 and 8 are the numbers for the first scorers today. Now Stan Jerd, just inside St George territory. Taylor linking up with Edge. pitch. Back with Taylor, the old-fashioned up and under. But it's St George who've come away with it. Now here's Burgess. FAIRHALL, now O'Grady. Trudgett standing out in the centres. That's where he's used to playing out there. And a good run from Trudgett too. Back with Steve Morris. Now St George are only 32 metres out from the Parramatta line. FAIRHALL and O'Grady. O'Grady using the kick, but Lydiard is there to take it safely. Brian Johnston harasses him, but he's away from him. A good run from Lydiard. Very talented youngster.
It's been a great find for Parramatta. He's done everything right this year. He started on the wing, then he's gone to centre, full back, and every time he plays, he performs very well.
What they call the guru, very growth playing it. Now it's with Price. Graham Quinn in there to make the tackle with O'Grady. Taylor. Now Quinn. And Bugden standing out very wide. Neil Hunt now. Caught and held right on his own quarter line. Parramatta lead by 4 points to 2. I think you don't argue from Mayers, just put the shoulder into the defence. Pat Jarvis it was who felt the full power of his shoulder. Last tackle now for the Eels. And Ella with that grubber kick. Not going to find touch though. Burgess is there to take it. But Kenny across and beautifully takes his legs from under him. Great tackle. Kinsella now from dummy half, but the Parramatta defence very quick up on him. Burgess again. A lot of this one-out stuff from dummy half now, allowing his players to get back on side, and they took a while to do so. Now it's O'Grady. Kinsella. Defence too good. Brett Kenny up there for that tackle. Morris with a little kick, but again it's Lydiard, and the ball bounced perfectly for Lydiard. 10 metres short of the halfway mark. Taylor flicked it away to Eric Groth. Now it's with Stephen Sharp. Able to offload to Quinn. Stood nicely and got it back to Ella, who almost made the halfway mark. Parramatta slowly slipping into gear now as Bugden lurking wide of the ruck. Looking for a runner. Couldn't do so. Jarvis the tackler. He's back with Taylor. Now Quinn. And now Kenny. And now Eric Groth. And the big don't argue. Big Kinsella. And Groth is down. He's still going. But can't beat the tackle of Burgess. Now he can. It's back with Ella. And Ella saw the line. And there's another Parramatta try. Well, I thought that Eric Groth was held, but he was able to burst his way free as only he can. So St George in for their second try via that man, Stephen Ella.
Yes, it's this long pass again from Quinn and the long one to Kenny, who then takes the tackle, and Groth, of course, strong enough to get away from Kinsella. He steadies himself here. I think St George created the cardinal sin of dwelling and assuming he was tackled, of course, before he unloaded to Ella, who just went straight for the line. A great try.
Ella scoring his 12th try of the season, attempting the conversion of that try. And it's straight through the post, so the Parramatta Eels go further in front. Parramatta 10 leads St George 2.
This just shows the brilliance of this Parramatta side. They're really never beaten. Here's Groth, the big palm off Kinsella. Now, just watch the way Groth wants to keep it alive. He has a look to kick, decides now he'll bust the tackle. And that's the thing that I like about Groth. When he's in that mood, he's a great winger. Gets it on to Ella, with Ella unmarked. And, oh, gee, that's just the sort of football that Parramatta love to turn on.
Michael Beattie looking for touch. Got to hold the ball for at least 6 tackles here. It's no good squandering it early. They need points badly now. Here's Chris Walsh.
There's the difference, Ian, in the two sides being drilled. That's just a tap kick straight to a forward, take the tackle and then start again. But they've already used up one tackle, whereas Parramatta are doing things and creating some sort of divergent all the time. Another penalty.
Well, it's 3 straight penalties to St George, 17 for the first half. he's Steve Gearin with the penalty shot. Looks pretty good in the air, and it's right between the posts. So a good kick for Steve Gearin, and the score, Parramatta 10 leading St George 4. 2.5 minutes of play remaining in the first half. Now here's Parramatta putting on yet another move, and it's Bugden who finally has it. And held just inside the St George quarter. Para lead 10-4. Here's Taylor. Now Mayers. Palms off 2 tacklers. Got it back to Taylor. Now it's to Quinn and Kenny. Stephen Edge.
I think because of Parramatta's pattern of play, it gives them a far greater degree of confidence, because they know exactly what they're doing all the time.
Stephen Ella showing that he can kick field goals as well. And right over the bar for another 1 point. So the half-time score is Parramatta 11 leading St George 4. The penalties are 9 each. The scrums favour St George 3-1. So Para at half-time lead 11 points to 4.
And St George restart. Will be taken by Taylor. Quickly gets it out to Hunt. This is Lydiard up from fullback, a dummy half. Bugden. This St George side not written off. They can come back into this game, but they need to put a bit more fire into their defence and certainly use the ball a little better than they did in the first half. Ella with a little kick over the top. Taken by Johnston. And he's taken by Ella. St George's turn with the ball now. This is Beattie. Better running from St George now. They straighten the attack up and the ball goes loose. Quickly picked up though. And St George working play almost to the halfway line. Decide not to kick this time though. It goes to O'Grady. He's going to kick. Better position. And was covered by Hunt, but he's let it go into touch. It's a good kick from O'Grady. Hunt had it covered, but watch it again. O'Grady had the better position to kick. Went quickly to him. Hunt had it covered. Little high for him. And bounces into touch. This will give St George the feed and the chance to get back on the attack. Referee Graham West having a fair bit to say. Won by St George, but penalty to Parramatta. And I think that one was pretty obvious, actually. Right, let's have a look at the points from the first half. The missed and dropped bad passes and tackles. Parramatta 6 and George 9. The drop balls 5-3 going Parramatta's way, and bad passes only 1 by St George. Now in defence, Sharp has tackled 13 players, Mayers 12, Bugden 11, Dowling an amazing 22 tackles, Walsh 18 and Jarvis 17.
Sharp to the halfway. 11-4, Parramatta lead. Now here's Bugden, able to offload nicely too, and still keeping the ball alive. Here's Kenny. Kenny to the corner line. He's got support too. Turns it back inside the Price. Back with Sharp. Sharp over the edge. Edge will score. Well, Parramatta just sheer backing up and keeping the ball alive have been able to score another try. And it's Stephen Edge. Doesn't score very many tries, Steve Edge, but that was a good one. Here's how it happened. That was Bugden. That was a good pass. Edge was almost almost picking the ball up there, but instead it was Kenny. Kenny had Price with him, and Edge, and Sharp. Finally got it back to Price, then over to Sharp, who was able to get his arms free and get that pass away to Edge, who was in the score for Parramatta.
From set play, a short ball to Bugden, who kept this ball moving. That's the real essence of this try. Every member of the people in the try-scoring movement kept it going. I thought Kenny had turned it the wrong way here to Price, but fortunately Price was able to keep it moving again. On to Sharp, and then again Edge carefully waits for it. He backed up twice there, got the ball finally to go over for a great try.
Stephen Ella 1 from 2 today, plus a field goal and a try, so he's been right in this game. And he's hit that one pretty well to hit the upright and bounces back in the field of play, so the score remains 15-4 in favour of Parramatta over St George.
This is the sort of football that'll bring the fans back to the game. It's what the game is all about. The break is made by one of the fast men in Kenny. He turns it back into Price, one of the old warriors of the game. He makes sure that he keeps it alive, and just sheer quick hands, and it results in a try. Great football. Parramatta very deep now on the 22. Is this Hunt? Kenny looking to unload but can't. Good tackle from O'Grady. Penalty though. Once again the game breaks down, this time to Parramatta, and St George caught inside the 5. Neil Hunt to take this kick, so a change of kicker. Steve Ella has been doing the kicking for this game, but at the moment he was injured just a little while ago. Coming off actually. Steve Ella is coming off now. I don't think he wants to come off. He's saying, no, I'm okay. We'll see what happens. But I think they're going to take him off. It's obviously a shoulder. He pointed to the shoulder. And the kick is successful. So scoreline now, Parramatta 17, St George 4.
St George with it all to do. Stephen Ella off the field, and this is the new player. This is Digby Murray, number 21. Digby Murray playing at fullback on the Parramatta side. A reshuffle of the back line. We'll pick up those positional changes for you shortly. I'd suggest that David Lydiard has merely switched to the centre, but we'll confirm that as soon as we can.
Did you see that?
And St George have made a change too, with Stephen Casey wearing number 17 on for St George. The scrum will go down 20 metres out from the Parramatta line.
Another win to the St George side, but the referee, Graham Wester, will have it again. This time they win it again. They break on the blind side. This is Glenn Burgess. Up in the back line, they need to score and score quickly as O'Grady works it forward. About 12 metres out from the Parramatta line now, St George. Dowling. This is Jarvis.
Game one out.
Starting to spin it wide now, and they've got runners out there, but have come back inside again. St George straight back into the Parramatta defence and belted down. Players still coming back on side for St George as they start to flick it out along the line, still looking for the gaps, but this Parramatta defence first class. FAIRHALL, the chip over the top, the only way to go, but taken out of the air very, very well by Parramatta, and they run it out. And they just do it so easy. And Brett Kenny is a complete player, the man that's he can kick, he can run, tackle, a complete rugby league player. But St George take it through beating. And he's about 4 metres out. Chance now for the Saints. This is Walsh. Dowling may go from dummy half. Now decides to give it to FAIRHALL. Then it goes out to O'Grady. O'Grady looking for runners. Here's Beatty, but he slips. Taken by Bugden. Burgess, dummy half. O'Grady steps back the other way. O'Grady very, very close, about 5 metres out. Morris. Long pass out. But Saints just bottle up. They can't break this defence, and they're dead set in front of the last tackle. Morris going to chip it through, but the referee's whistle beat him to it. Penalty to Parramatta. Well, Saints inside the 5, and that's part of this new rule, Arthur, that I do not agree with.
It's a disgusting rule, really, when that happens. That they were put Parramatta under pressure, of course, and then to get that sort of a penalty against them takes the pressure totally off them. Totally disheartening for a side in attack like that.
Oh, well done too by St George, but it's been towed through from Parramatta. If the ball stays in, it'll be a try. Hunt, yes, try! Oh, can you believe it's a great play from St George? Results in a Parramatta try to Neil Hunt. And the ball just bounced favourably for him. He swooped on it, lifting him like a seagull after a bit of scrappy fish at the beach. Well, you've got to see the complete thing. This is unbelievable. Here's the kick from Parramatta. Now watch this. Look at that. Just flicked back inside by Burgess. Now the chase is on. Neil Hunt. If the ball will just bounce for him, it does, and he's in for the try. Unbelievable football. Not an easy one for him. He's certainly got the height. And he's got the 2 points. And what about that? Scores the try and converts it from the touchline. And Parramatta can do no wrong. Scoreline 23, Parramatta, St George 4. And play midway between the half and the quarter. St George is into the ground.
Well, St George, Parramatta at least making another change. And Peter Wynn is on to replace Jeff Bugden. So Peter Wynn, who's had a horror run of injuries, is back in first grade. He's a fine player. His growth now running on his knees. 32 metres out. Jeff Bugden had a fine game for Parramatta. Peter Wynn on to replace him. Now here's Parramatta hungry for tries now. Over the last few weeks we've seen some marvellous exhibitions from Manly, and everybody's been singing their praises, and rightly so. But now Parramatta starting to show that they can be just as demoralising when they are in top gear. Peter Wynn, the new replacement player, turning it in for Paul Mears. The marvellous thing about this Parramatta side is how they can just keep the ball alive. They scored a couple of tries like that today. And here's Kenny. Kenny found the gap. He's got support, but that pass was forward. Digby Murray taking the pass, but the referee, Graham West, in a good position to rule a forward pass. Let's have a look. Kenny was in the clear, but that pass has been ruled forward. 26 penalties in this match. And I suppose that everybody will be very critical of the referee for blowing his whistle so often. But don't forget, he's not the one who commits the indiscretions out there.
I think they'd be better off forgetting about this attacking side being penalised in the 5 yards, because there's been a number of occasions where he hasn't penalised the side for that, yet under certain circumstances he has done so, and they're very difficult decisions to make.
St George. With a beautiful tackle from Paul Taylor. And he's Trudgett. Caught by Sharp, last tackle for the Saints. That's another changeover. And Brad Garrett is out there. Now it's Kenny. Now Lydiard, who's now playing in the centre, with Murray at fullback. Peter Wynn, a dummy to Growth, and then almost a one-handed pass, but he pulled it back into his chest. 27 minutes gone in the second half. Parramatta lead by 23 points to 4. Stan Jerd. Now Sharp. Taylor. Murray. I thought hit a little bit late. The referee has thought the same thing too, but he played an advantage rule, and that's a very good ruling. As Brett Kenny picked up the bench and dives over in the corner for yet another Parramatta try. Well, a good effort from the referee. He was very nearly blowing his whistle for a penalty, but played the advantage, and that's a good ruling, because that's a good try. And here's Murray. Watch, he's hit late there. Now the referee, you might even see him put his whistle to his mouth there, about to call halt play, but Kenny was able to pick it up, and that's Kenny's 12th try for 1983. Neil Hunt from the sideline. Beautiful kick, his last one. It's in the air, but just wide. So the score remains 27 points to 4 in favour of Parramatta over St George. Ray Price leaving the field for Parramatta. The fans give him a great cheer in a fine game. Well, that's a terrible mistake from St George, kicking out on the full like that.
Parramatta with the ball now. Hunt. Just takes the settler. Now watch for the moves. They certainly line up in all funny shapes, ways and sizes, this Parramatta side, but this time they see us wrong. They virtually run from dummy half, but keep it alive. Grove. The runaway Mack truck down to the 22. And there's a penalty to Parramatta as Grove went to get up. Slam down. That was Quinn. It looked like he was getting emotional. Let's have a look at it again. Grove trying to get up. And Quinny looked like he was going to plant one on him. A kiss, I mean. All right, Hunt ready to take this penalty kick. Just outside the 22 and about 20 metres off centre. Waved away, though. Neil Hunt, fine game today. And he's really developing in a very, very good winger. Goals 2 from 4. He scored a try. St George take the tap. Quinn is off and Glenn Montgomery has gone on. So that's number 18 on now. So wholesale changes certainly been made. 18 for St George is Glenn Montgomery. He's on for Quinn. Parramatta with the ball. This is Stan Jerd. Taken this time though, Jerd. And Johnston, the major tackler. On coming the runners. This is Sharp. And Walsh and Dowling giving a little bit of attention. Parramatta too deep then, so the runners deciding to take the tackle. And Edge, what a fine captain this fellow is, Arthur. He certainly knows how to lead a side, doesn't he? When to settle it and when to drive them. Well,
that's exactly what happened there. As a matter of fact, he knew that there was no point in passing the ball, so he took the tackle himself.
Another interesting, there's Roy Masters. Well, Roy Masters would have to be a very, very sad man for most of the season, but totally shattered after today, I would think.
Minutes ticking by. Jerd back with Edge. Now Mears again, front rowers kicking. Mears is very nearly there. In fact, he's claiming a try, but the referee ruling that he lost the ball forward. Well, let's have a look. This is the result of the kick from Mears. Yes, and that's a pretty good ruling by West. It came off Mears' chest. Now it's St George back in possession following that 22-metre place kick. And Johnston in possession. Morris. And O'Grady. A wide ball for Casey, who's put it down. Referee West putting another scrum down. Plenty of scrums put down, but not too many decided. There have been 9 scrum penalties. 9 clean scrums and 9 scrum penalties. And here's Parramatta with the Brad Garrett showing a dummy and getting it across to Murray onto Lydiard. But the St George's defence pretty good on that occasion, with Gearin coming in from the wing. Hunt. 32 metres out. Parramatta looking for another try. Already leading 27-4. Stan Jerd taking it up strongly. Only 1 minute remaining, and here's Peter Wynn. They're just outside the St George quarter. Back with Taylor. A bomb from Taylor. Pressure for Burgess. Takes it. No, he didn't take it. Hunt's taken it out of his hands and put it down for another try. How easy that is. Well, I thought that Burgess had it, and so did he. Here's the kick from Taylor. It hung in the air. They were following it through. I'd like to know whether Hunt was onside or not. We'll have a look on the second replay. Hunt's in for the try anyway.
I think Hunt was onside, but I think Mears was offside, of course. He did harass him a little bit, but great work to Hunt. Good try.
Well, a borderline decision, but the try has been awarded to Neil Hunt.
Yeah, I think it was Edge and Mears that were the ones that were offside, not Hunt.
Neil Hunt putting it right between the posts, so he's had a fine game, Neil Hunt. That takes Parramatta on to 33 and St George 4. Now back with Murray, retrieving that kick-off. 33-4. Good performance from the Premiers. Win. In fairness to St George, I must say it's a much improved effort and a much more gutsy performance than the one they turned in last week against Canterbury. Even though they've been well beaten, at least they've given it their best shot. And here's another penalty.
Yeah, fairly difficult to play against such a relentless, well-drilled side as this.
Well, the penalty not taken at the spot. And the referee now putting a scrum down for that. Half-time, full-time siren sounds, and that's all there is. There ain't no more. Parramatta have defeated St George by 33 points to 4. Penalties, 17 to Parramatta, 14 St George. The scrums favoured St George 6-4. And the full-time score, Parramatta 33, St George 4.
There it is, a runaway victory to Parramatta, and that says goodnight to St George for the 1983 season, really, as far as Final Five hopes are concerned. Parramatta 33, Neil Hunt scored a couple of tries, Ray Price, Steve Ella, Steve Edge, Brett Kenny got amongst them. Neil Hunt kicked 3 goals, Steve Ella a goal, and Steve Ella had a big one, he kicked a field goal as well. St George's 4, 2 goals from Steve Gearin. OK, our Winfield man of the match, here's Darryl Eastlake to tell us who it is.
Thanks, Mike. The man of the match today, the Winfield man of the match, is Steve Sharp, the second rower for Parramatta. Steve, a mistake-free game and a big effort from the club today.
That was a great effort. We held them scoreless, which was our aim, and that's what we done.
26 tackles you pulled off in defence, and you were very, very busy in attack, handling the ball in that sensational try that Steve Edge went over for.
Yeah, we all try to do our little bit.
Tell me, Jack seems to be able to pluck players out of the boondocks, throw them into the first grade, and they always play so well.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of enthusiasm in this club, and everyone wants to get to first grade, and when they get there, they give it their best shot.
Well, I think you're one of the unsung heroes of this Parramatta side. You know, you're always there in defence. You can make a break, and you back up the man all the time.
Thanks very much.
And what's it like playing with a side with so many stars that play so well together?
It's fantastic playing behind blokes like Pricey and Sterling and the rest of them.
You missed Cronin today with your goal kicking.
The stand-in goal kick done all right.
Well, they always cover their own defence.